There is no neutral option. There is no choice but to fight it unless you're for the things I show you tonight. We are up against something that has been so well planned out, but we can change this if we stand up and wake up. I'm going to show you more on this later, but this is a questionnaire that is part of one public school system's gender support plan. This is to be given to kids as early as kindergarten. Notice the box, students assigned sex at birth. And then the other box right next to it for the student's gender identity. Now, this goes on to establish a point of contact for the student to have people at the school the student can get counsel from regarding their gender identity. It specifies whether the child's family is aware of any of this and what the school should do if the parents aren't aware or aren't supportive. Let me just say this. If you had a family member, let's say a creepy uncle, that had your third grader alone and said, listen, we're just going to talk about things like your gender and sex, and we're not going to tell mom and dad. That's a family member. That family member would be lucky to escape my house alive. This is an entire system doing this to all of our kids. Teachers are actively discussing gender identity to kids as early as 5 years old. Not only that, keeping it secret from the parents is part of the plan. Let me ask you something. What couldn't you convince a 5-year-old? If you wanted to, if you had some kind of ulterior motive, couldn't you convince a 5-year-old damn near anything? This is grooming. You don't establish those kinds of relationships. Now, if you think your kids are safe in states that are generally considered the Bible Belt, think again. This is everywhere. Over Title IX coordinator who claimed he got it from a university and adapted it for K through 12 students. So something meant for adults is now being used for your kindergartner. This form is from another school in North Carolina. It specifically states there should be measures taken to conceal information from parents while the school continues gender identity treatment. Is this happening to your child right now? There is no way of really knowing because the school is being told to keep it secret. Now consider this. And then keep in mind the views of our new Supreme Court justice in giving light sentences to sex offenders. But surely that can't be the views of the mainstream Democratic Party, right? Well, here is Dick Durbin making the case that somehow the abundance of child porn on the internet makes everything okay. Watch.
These guidelines that you promulgated don't reflect the reality of today. We know as well that the guidelines were written, some were written in an era when the materials we're talking about were physical materials, and we now live in a world of internet and access to not just tens and hundreds, but thousands of images, if that is your decision.
Okay, we get it, right? We get it. So, good evening. That was Glenn Beck. I'm Sloan Rockmuth. This is Nancy Anderson, and this is going to be a hell of a broadcast tonight. And as I was telling Nancy earlier, it's going to be very slide intensive. We got a lot of data to arm you with. So if you're just reading the news today, you probably read that last night, Senate Bill 49 was dropped, and that's called the Parental Rights Bill. There was a version of it dropped in June of 2022. Again, the Senate Ed Committee passed it back in June, and then the Senate passed it, and it didn't make it to the House for a vote. And so this bill was slightly different from the one that came out in 2022. We're going to go over that right now. Slightly different, and it's moving pretty fast. So today, 11 o'clock was the Senate Ed meeting. We're going to tell you about that in the committee. It passed. We're going to share with you the objections that the left has, because you, the viewer, you need to be armed with what those are and understand how to respond, right? There's a way to respond to all of this. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., the bill will go to the Healthcare Committee in the Senate. And once we show you what's in the bill, you're going to understand why. All right. So it's good that we have an education person here. Well, we have two, but also a doctor. So you can sort of explain the outrageousness that is treating a child behind the backs of parents. And it most certainly is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. There's no way to slice it. So Nancy, you read over a little bit of it, and you and I have been talking for 2 years now about the invasive surveys, which lead to potentially medical treatment in the school, the gender plans we've discussed. You had a big story, an American Thinker, about that gender unicorn that got a lot of attention. People, and then you've been writing about stuff going on in Chapel Hill, and the funny thing is we'll say, yeah, Chapel Hill's a lost cause, right? It's
Right.
totally communist, and then damned if we don't see the stuff in rural schools 6 months or a year later.
Right. No, I mean, I write about Chapel Hill doing that. There's pretty much a woke mafia, but it's the sign and the symbol of what's to come. Even if you live somewhere where you don't think that could possibly happen, it will happen, and elements of it will happen, and they're working on getting it to happen. And one of the ways they're working on getting it to happen is to prevent common sense bills like this from passing, and trying to shame the legislators into thinking they aren't focusing on the right things, or it's not really happening, just like CRT isn't really happening in the schools, according to the left. So this is a very important bill. It's high priority. It's common sense. And yeah, we need it. So we'll go over it.
Yeah, I mean, we really do need it. Can you guys see, Nancy, can you see my screen right here?
I see the entire screen. Yeah.
You see the entire screen. Okay. So I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit. There's so much going on in this bill. So I just want to explain it. Okay. Now, do you see?
Yeah, I see the slide, secrecy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, so let's kind of go over this. So the bill itself, again, I mean, really 3/4 of the dang bill is just reciting the constitutional rights of parents already, right? You have the right to your child's education. You have the right to see records, etc. But the real theme that caught Nancy and I was the theme of secrecy, because that's really what it is. And don't think of it as your local teacher and local corner school keeping secrets. It is the government keeping secrets about your child from you. That is not hyperbole. That is what's happening. So basically, these are the tenets you need to remember, and I want you to really internalize this so you can socialize this. Can't keep gender changes now secret from parents. Now, a lot of people think, well, this is, benign. This is not a big deal. Let me tell you something. There are 3 phases of a sex change. Number 1 is a social transition. Bullet number 1, that means a social transition. Number 2, before a person has sex reassignment surgery, they are required to be on cross-sex hormones and or puberty blockers for 12 to 18 months. And then it's surgery. So step number 1, which is reversible, is bullet number 1, and that cannot be kept a secret. Number 2, can't ask children about, hey, do you use heroin, sexual experience, religious beliefs, etc. I mean, common sense, right? Now parents, under this legislation, should it pass, and it needs to, will have to opt in. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's
huge that they recognize that need. Yeah.
Right. And that was one of our criticisms of the bill before. The bill before was just, you got to make sure that you tell parents. Well, I mean, hell, you can bury, right, these facts on a Facebook page and say, hey, by the way, in 2 weeks, we're going to have this survey. And then who looks at that? Okay. Can't place children under observation for mental health issues in secret. Can't deliver health care to children in secret. Okay. Now, so one of the criticisms that we had from today really is that, look, Republicans did a great job. Thank you, Senator Galey. Thank you very much, Senator Lee. And then, I think it was Lisa Burns put up this bill. Thank you. But you have to come with evidence. And we've been writing about this for 2 years now. We have plenty of evidence. Age appropriate instruction for grades K through 4th grade. No gender identity, sexual activity, sexuality shall be included. You know, with the problem with reading literacy or lack thereof, add to that the fact that 47% of schools in North Carolina are at a D or an F level. You think that this is right where they need to be. But, okay. Here's some evidence of it going on. At the time, the Senate Republicans didn't proffer any evidence. Here's just one thing. Flashcards showing a pregnant man to Wake County kindergartners. Y'all remember this from about 2 weeks ago, where now North Carolina pre-K teachers are apparently being trained how to indoctrinate children to understand gender binaries or non-binary or two-spirit or laser claws or whatever the hell else they're going to come up with. This bill clearly needs to be changed from pre-K to 12. That's our position. We're going to tell you why in a minute. Oh, and here's this. Pitt County, they're getting trained, elementary schools are being trained to ask children about their gender and their sexuality. And guess what? Horror of our horrors. This training is being done in conjunction with ECU's pediatric gender clinic, which claims to start at 4 years old to talk to children and give them therapy for gender dysphoria. All right. So that's that. There's some evidence. Invasive surveys. Just what we said. But this is actually law for FERPA. Mental psychological problems, sex behaviors or attitudes, all of course self-incriminating, tidbits. This can be used against you by the, who is it? Government. Why would you tell the government if you sold drugs? Why would you tell the government if you are doing drugs? I mean, you shouldn't be doing it, yeah. but what, I mean, Nancy, what, teenage boys, they always like to prank around. What if they bubble in?
Yeah. I don't know how they can really take these seriously, because you don't know who's messing around with the answers, because some of the questions are just so ridiculous. And it doesn't really make any sense to me. And I think this is an important change from the last bill, like you mentioned, that was proffered, is that now these are opt-in. So the parent, one of the ways they would, try to get more responses and more data would say, well, the parents have to opt out. And it's very easy to miss emails, Facebook announcements, like you said. But now the school deliberately has to inform the parent, give them the information, make sure the parent sees the announcement, and the parent has to give permission to opt in for their kid to take the survey. So it's just much more transparent, much better method of communication between parent and school, to build trust with teachers. So this part of the bill makes absolute sense. And it's a great thing that North Carolina would have something like this. It's, we live in a different age than we did even 5-10 years ago. And we need these kind of protections for parents and kids.
Yeah, I mean, for all kids, without a doubt. And so I'm making a prediction, an informed prediction. I'll bet you the number of parents that say, "Sure, ask my kids about." By the way, parents need to be able to see the survey. That's another thing the bill says. But I'm almost sure that a parent of an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, hell, a 16-year-old would look at a survey like the ones we're going to show you and say, "Yeah, I want my kid answering these questions." I bet it goes down to like 2 kids per school. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, and here's the take home, guys. You shouldn't be asking questions like this. I get it; it's a public health thing, etc. But I mean, I'm the social researcher here. You're the clinical researcher. In social science, I mean, when you give a self report,
Mhm.
I mean, they're not reliable. I mean, I can take a survey before I have my coffee and come in as completely depressed. By the end of the day, right, I'm manic, or
Right.
it's a snapshot.
Right. And a lot of them are very feelings based. And like you said, with these kids, they can change, feelings, and they're just overall unreliable and very intrusive. And you don't know, like I said, with this self-report, you don't know who's checking off the box to have a laugh and that kind of thing. So uh and quite frankly, districts are spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on these things, tens of thousands of dollars on these companies to come in and give these surveys, which could be going towards academics or to the students who have needs, uh, and could be funding those things. So I think when parents are more involved, have to know what the surveys are, have to know the questions, some real scrutiny will come on. Okay, how much are we actually paying for this, and how useful is it? And maybe we can redirect the funds towards something that's more of a priority.
Correct. And teacher pay is a big thing for us.
Right. Like
It's a
teacher
big thing
pay.
for teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we would like to see you know, a 10 to 15% raise. The left always is off the charts and not reasonable. They're asking for a 25% raise. I think if we cut this stuff out and we cut the DPI down by 50%, that could easily bring the
Mhm.
starting pay of a teacher up from $37,000 a year, which is ridiculous, to somewhere in the neighborhood of 42 or 45,000. That's
Right.
really where it should be. It's where it needs to be. Teaching as a profession. It's not on the same scale as flipping burgers. Nothing wrong with that. But it's a
Yeah.
profession, not a job. And we
Why?
need to,
Right. Sorry. Why invest in third party survey companies when you can invest in your teachers, right?
yep,
Like,
yep. And by the way, none of these questions have anything to do with education.
right.
This is, by the way, you're looking at a DPI CDC survey. Let me tell you how they're given biannually. And allegedly, the schools are selected at random to participate. And they do get a statistically significant sample size around the neighborhood of 2,100. Again, I don't know the chain of custody in these surveys. I don't know. I mean, if teachers can fill them out and say that it was given, we don't know, and we need to know. We need to know. Okay, this seems like a no-brainer, right? I mean, what you need to do, name, pronoun for school, by records personnel, parents are notified of the change. Because again, it's the first step. The second step is medical and irreversible.
Right. And a lot of the comments today were geared towards, oh, it's the panic button. Don't say gay bill. They're not going to be allowed to be who they want to be. And the bill has none of that. And it doesn't say, for kids that want to use pronouns or different names that they can't. They can. It's just that their parents have to be involved in knowing. And that makes sense.
Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. So we have reported this extensively in Power School, guys. That is the official school record across the state that's used. Now kids can change their name and the biological sex field is hidden from teachers and principals, and it's adjustable. So that can be done without consent. That this bill addresses. So Nancy, I'm kind of proud of us right now, because everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, it's codified in this legislation, but it's going far short of where we want it to go. But opening up the first day of the Senate Ed Committee and setting the tone that, no, I'm sorry, these are the people's school, not the government, was really good for me.
Yeah, and it sets the tone of having adults in the room. Like, come on, people, let's grow up. Like, parents are in charge of their kids' education. There are obviously, you can deny it, but you are wrong. There are obviously schools that are pushing an agenda to keep things and tell the kids to keep things from parents. It's happening more and more. It's happening throughout the state. We have the evidence. It happened to me. So in a private school. So we know this is happening. Grow up. Let's address the problem so we can move on, build trust in the community, build trust in the schools, invest in our teachers, and get our kids educated.
Yes. Well said. Well said. And again, this stuff may not be happening in our schools. That's fine. But the children victimized by this are typically low-income students and or parents that are extremely busy. Or look, I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, all parents want to be involved. Maybe there's far less than there should be, according to teachers, right? They want more parental involvement. And right. I mean, but this is so that parents who want to be involved can be. And so that students will not be victimized. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Gender support plan. So I want you to remember this, because in a second, I'm going to show you why you need to remember it. This is an actual gender support plan. This is used in New Hanover, Orange County, and Charlotte. So at least 3 school districts. This is a common form that Gender Spectrum organization puts out. Who will be the students' go-to adults at school? Okay. This is after directing school staff to keep the gender change quiet from the parent.
Yeah. And we have personal records that, people who were afraid of losing their jobs came to Ed First that said, I was told by the school to keep this secret from parents. Similar stories ended up on the facts task force. I know the left likes to make fun of it. But there are documented stories from school counselors and social workers in schools who are afraid of losing their job, who want to stay anonymous, who are being told, I have to keep this a secret from the caregivers, parents, grandparents of the child. It's documented, it's happening. And Gender Spectrum, I can tell you, like, Orange County's gender plan, support plan, was basically word for word ripoff from this Gender Spectrum .org website. These are activist groups that are coming in pretending to be medical professionals, pretending to be the only voice, and usurping public education for their activist desires. And that's completely inappropriate. Yeah.
And kids are caught in the crosshair as usual. And so that's plain not right. Cumberland County. Okay. That's right in the Fayetteville area. Thank you, Julie said they have, I'll bet you out of the 115 school districts, far too many of them have them, right? One is too many as far as we're concerned. Okay. So let's get to the meat of this and the real issue here, because it really is the problem, I think. And it's this, when we talk about grooming, it's not just us saying it. It's on the DPI's website. I'm going to show you. Okay. So the law right here, this is the law, is that, and this is a good law, all personnel need to be trained in youth mental health, suicide prevention, substance abuse, sexual abuse, sex trafficking prevention, teenage dating violence. Yeah. Nobody's going to disagree. So the law's on top, policy is at the bottom, right? You're going to promote all of this stuff in school. to all school units, etc. I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, if we're gonna have open borders like we have, right, by and large, you got to train the staff on human trafficking, because that's, you know, going to be a central hub. Okay, so that's the law, the policy. Check this out. This is on the DPI website right now today. The grooming process of sexual predators. Okay. This is according to the DPI, and I couldn't agree more. So the next slide, we went to the top of the mountain, the #1 training organization that trains everyone on the left, by the way, from Google to Lyft to Amazon to school, every school district. Here's the warning signs. Ready? Victim selection. Observe victims and select them based on ease of access or perceived vulnerability. Remember the questionnaire? That's one questionnaire that I just showed you, and it was from the CDC and DPI. It actually asks 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, how many hours a day are you alone?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had sex? How fast can you get to a loaded gun or a gun and load it? That seems to me stuff that a predator would want to know. Gaining access and isolating the victim. That sounds a lot like the gender support plan. We assign a support, I was going to say support animal. You'd be better off with a damn barracuda.
Yeah, really.
Support animal than a predator.
Yeah.
Okay. Trust development and keeping secrets.
Right.
This would undo that.
In my public school education as a Gen Xer, right? Yeah, Gen Xer. You know, all I can remember is in the health classes and stuff, like, go and tell someone, you know, like if someone's being inappropriate with you and they tell you to keep it a secret and they don't want to get in trouble, go and make sure you tell someone. And here we have the teachers in these activist groups telling the kids not to tell someone. It's the total opposite of what you're supposed to do. And they're doing it because they know it's wrong.
But again, this is the law. They're supposed to train on it. The DPI says we train on it. If you're training on it, you know all this stuff, right? You know this. Desensitization to discussion of sexual topics. Hello, pregnant man. Hello, what's your sexuality? And sometimes girls like girls and boys like boys.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't address this. Today at the Senate committee, there were about 25 speakers. Guys, there was only 3 folks that spoke in the affirmative in support of this bill. The others were bringing up LGBTQ when it's not in the bill. But I have news for you. Gay children can be victimized too, and they are very frequently. They need to be protected. They deserve to be protected, and we're going to advocate for them. And then attempt to make the behavior seem natural. I don't know, like discussions on sexuality ad nauseum through social emotional learning in all 12 academic subjects, focused on identity. That seems to be normalizing that. So I did a cursory inquiry for the last 8 weeks on who's been arrested for being a sexual predator. Okay. They've been arrested for it. They've been charged in North Carolina. This cretin has apparently, they think, molested several children in Lee County. Just came out today, a few hours ago, Edgecombe County, sex assault, 1 or 2 victims. Girls do it too, right? Again, this is right around the corner from my house. And this, I think, she looks so young to be a teacher. And I think some substitute teachers are able to be 18 and teach now. This is what's happening. Not good. This abuser, and I guarantee you, all of them chose their victim. All of them normalized the sexual behavior, which could be through social emotional learning lessons, to be frank. Okay. This guy, I mean, you would never suspect him. He was a former police officer. He was a coach. He was all these things, 4 charges of statutory sexual offense with children under 15, 4 counts of first-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. And here we go, rape, incident with a student, that's Transylvania. So in other words, you know, what we're talking about, what we're saying is that keeping secrets, can't do it. Wayne, you're asking me, yes, charter schools are required to do this. Yes. So teachers are trained on it. And by the way, I've spoken with a number of teachers over the last 2 years who have unfortunately been a coworker of a teacher who has abused children, and they found out about it later, and it's very traumatic for them.
Yeah, keeping secrets leads to a lot of problems, and parents need to be in the know. And especially when the NCDPI and schools are increasingly interested in data collection and these surveys, which have exploded in the past several years for multiple reasons. The emphasis on the mental health stuff, the money-making capability for the companies themselves, investment from progressive billionaires like Bill Gates and Chan Zuckerberg. So yeah, we have to deal with, as a state, we have to deal with at the legislative level, which is in charge of the education, the ultimate boss for education in the state, over the school board, state school board, and DPI. A way to deal with these surveys and this information that keeps parents informed. Opt-in is the gold standard, and that's what it should be, and that's what this version of the bill addresses. It's an immediate priority because, as Sloan just showed you, look at all the teachers just in the past few weeks, or school personnel. And secrecy is what's going to allow this type of behavior to thrive. So parents have to be in the know when it comes to these surveys, what's being asked, who's asking them, if they're okay with their kids being asked, that type of thing. Because what rational person would have a problem? What rational person would want to keep a parent from knowing these questions on the survey? If the surveys are just so important, we cannot educate without these surveys. Well, if they're that important, then you need to let the parents know what they are, why they are, what's in them. And schools are not doing that, not to the degree that they need to be done. And so this bill addresses that, and it's very important in its forefront. And I, applaud, like Sloan said, those who are putting this bill forward. And we need to support them as much as possible because this is a priority. Because again, like I said earlier in the broadcast, it builds trust in the community, trust in schools. You open the floodgates for communication between schools and parents. They start trusting each other more. They want to invest more. They see the good teachers, and then we can focus on educating our kids and giving teachers the reimbursement that they need and the resources they need. We don't have to deal with this crap,
And when it comes to cost, so last year we did a report that the DPI asked for $9 million for panorama surveys. That's just one survey. Very many schools give up to 6 and 7 surveys a year. Mm-hmm. So, you take that, you take a lot of these things, and we're actually putting together a report right now where we're going line item by line item, and we're saying, that can be cut. That can be cut, right? We've got to get money to the classrooms. Teachers shouldn't be responsible for paying for their own supplies. We've got to get our arms around discipline, etc. So I venture to say that, when we're talking about rural areas, and North Carolina is second only to Texas in terms of rural territory. They're not perhaps up on all the SEL, but I will tell you this. A lot of the pictures I showed you, Nancy, those are teachers in rural areas. So Transylvania, there's 2 other ones that were just popping up. So if you think that this problem is just a Wake County or Charlotte-Mecklenburg or a New Hanover problem, you're wrong. This bill, we need it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. No, this is the foundation. Trust should be the foundation of education and the family unit. And if the family isn't informed, if the parents aren't informed of what's going on, aggressively informed, there will be no trust, and there will be no rebuilding of the school system. There will be no investment in the teachers, and it will crumble. So for all of the legislators today who were whining and carrying on about, what about these other things that we just talked about, the Hunt Institute, and this didn't come up, and I can't believe this is the first bill of the session. Yeah. So those legislators are the ones that are out of touch, because if you don't have trust, which we have lost significantly, exponentially over the past few years, because of the number of parents like myself who have not been told about things being taught to their kids that even adults have a hard time with, that are grossly age inappropriate, then you can't have education.
Yeah. And when you question them, Nancy, you know full well the attitude of some administrators and superintendents.
And imagine the people, like, I use myself as an example because, one, I have the time to investigate it. I have the education to understand what, to read closely and to look at things and to think about it. And I even have a degree, an MD, and a board certification and experience in that behind my name, which I don't, take out immediately. And despite having those things, the school was still telling me that I was the one who was incorrect, that they don't have to tell parents.
Teachers know best.
Yeah, that they know best, and then I would just have to deal with it. And and I was sitting there with my mother-in-law, who's also a physician throughout her entire life. So 2 physician parents, grandparents with experience, and the school's telling us no one with medical backgrounds or anything like that. So if they're doing that to someone, like me with a degree and who did a full-time residency in general surgery and board certified, guess who they're totally running over? You know what I mean?
Well, we can almost say preying upon or targeting. Right. And by the way, 90% of teachers, it's a calling, it's a profession, they're doing their job, and they would report and probably have reported this type of behavior, predatory behavior, by their colleagues. Mm-hmm. We want more of that. We want more of what you just said. Trust is the bedrock. And most of this bill, it says, look, schools, you need to do better than just, putting policies up maybe on your website. You need to do a proactive communication campaign to make sure that parents know what their rights are.
Right. The other important aspects of the bill, just to tack on, there are things in there with the bill that gives parents ways to get remedy if the school isn't telling them or isn't being responsive to their requests to review materials, which has happened to parents too. If parents are being stonewalled, there is now, the bill puts in place a process so that parents can get immediate or relatively immediate closure, a process to appeal, their issues. And it makes, which is different. And another thing that is actually different from the bill back in June is that it makes the NCDPI have to keep track of the schools that aren't communicating with parents, of the schools that are not paying attention to this law. and they have to present it to the legislative oversight, committees, or to the legislature, so the legislature is better informed about what schools are and are not doing, and being responsive to the North Carolina taxpayer that's paying for these schools. So those are very important things to give parents a recourse who have been stonewalled, and to keep the legislature better informed, to hold the NCDPI responsible. And those are common sense things that make sense within North Carolina's constitutional system. So again, like, there's a lot of drama. Oh my God, more kids are going to die. Oh my God, this is about to say this or that, when it's really not. It's common sense remedies for parents who are getting stonewalled in giant bureaucracies, in the small percentage of teachers who have become, activists, and are taking advantage of the system.
Right. And children. And so Wayne has a good question. What can conservative members of a county school board do? Wayne, I'm glad you asked that. So we've got investigative reports, and they go out weekly. In fact, we've written up to 5 a week, and we send it to every school board member in North Carolina, and many of them on the right and the left read them, because we're in Raleigh. So our reporting, a bulk of our reporting happens to be what the DPI is doing, what they're sending out, because look, they ain't the best communicators, I'll be honest with you. So a lot of school board members, they've got full-time jobs. They don't know how things work. And so one of the strong suits of our organization is that we explain these policy things and how they connect with the other one. It's not enough to know that, hey, now schools can do mental health services. Oh, damn. The age of consent is 0. So even a first grader can consent to their own medical treatment in school. Wow, it connects. And a lot of folks will say, well, that's not really happening, etc. I'm going to tell you what you already know. If it's legal, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows loopholes like people that are trying to groom children, or play the system or whatever. I mean, look, we're trust but verify. We trust that teachers want to do a good job, that they were trained to do a good job, but clearly we need oversight, right? And you'll hear a lot of unreasonable people, particularly people from the teachers union, the NCAE. Their tagline is trust all teachers. So trust all teachers. Would you?
I trusted some of my kids' teachers, and that didn't work out very well.
Yeah. So it's trust all teachers. I'm trying to get this back up again to show you. Shoot. And I can't. Hold on one second. Let me see. Share screen. I'm going to ask you if you would trust this guy. Do you want this guy asking your child, hey, what time does mom and dad, or how often are you alone? Or have you had sex yet? That's a teacher that can't be trusted. This is another teacher that can't be trusted. And another, and another, and another. Do you want them asking your child invasive questions? Gay parents don't want that. Straight parents don't want that. Black, white, Asian, Jewish, whoever, they don't want it. And so, guys, when you're out here defending this stuff and telling your neighbors about it or whatever, or your church members or what, do not take the bait of, if you pass this bill, it means you can't say gay. Or if you pass this bill, it means, here's the one I love, that gay children will kill themselves if the bill is passed. Don't take the bait. Okay. Yeah. This is a common sense bill that's very safe. On the DPI's website, you will find that sexual grooming and learning about how that works is integral to protecting children. We agree. And now it's going to be codified in a law that those measures to stop that from happening will actually now be in place. And as you mentioned, parents will have a way to sue, and they don't now. There's something called qualified immunity. And unfortunately, that covers a heck of a lot of bad behavior inside of the school.
Mhm.
So
It also keeps medical professionals from soliciting in schools, and punishes them as well if they do anything without parent knowledge, including reporting to the licensing boards and of the state, and being subjected to a fine. And that's important too, because the way things are going in the state, there's going to be more and more telehealth, meaning medical professionals zooming in to schools while parents are at work. And we need to set those boundaries because
you,
I mean,
that's
this
good.
is going to go so fast. So the complaints that this isn't a priority bill are totally unjustified. This is very much a priority bill. These things are happening fast. These schools are becoming more and more community centered.
Yeah.
And we need some boundaries, and this bill provides that.
Yeah, and we need recourse and responsibility. The thing I love about it, like you said, Nancy, it has teeth, right? It gives parents the ability to hold people accountable for very, very dangerous things. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. This goes to the Senate Health Committee. I hope that some of you will be encouraged to show up. If you cannot, I would like for you to commit tonight. Here's the challenge. You're going to call 5 of these offices in the morning, first thing, and say, I support you and I support this bill. We have to support these senators. There are unreasonable people that are going to be making unreasonable arguments, i.e. gaslighting the public about this. You need to be well armed. You need to educate people. We've asked for this bill. We have asked for the senators to give us this bill. We've got to do our part. Now, Ralph Hayes, we backed strongly. We know what Ralph is going to do. He put up the Youth Protection Act, and he is very reliable for this. He can carry this just fine.
Amy Bailey is behind the bill as well as
Lisa Barnes. Yeah, and Lisa Barnes. Kevin Corbin. He needs to know what's up. I would concentrate on Kevin Corbin. Now, you know, a senator, nobody here, but a senator may say, hey, I'm accountable to the people in Wake County or whatever. Well, if you're sitting on a committee, you have a role in governing the entire state. Just because these folks are not your representative, in this instance, it doesn't matter. Now, these Republicans, all of them have said they are in lockstep against this stuff. Again, Kevin Corbin is the only one that I'm not sure of. Benton, sorry, he's out of Johnston County. He is a new guy, but I can tell you Johnston County very definitely supports this bill. Jim Perry. I mean, these are strong conservatives. I'm sure that they're going to do the right thing. That's not the problem. You need to let them know that the people are with them because there is a mob.
Yes.
There's a mob and they are ready to go.
Yeah. No, they've been organizing. They all knew about this stuff today. The education committee, they were all there. There's a huge mob. And, you know, it's intimidating. And these senators need to hear from the public. And what's more, they need to be educated by the public. You need to give them, if you can, the straightforward examples that you've seen that we showed here in the beginning that are throughout EdFirst's website. I have a Facebook private page for No Left Turn in North Carolina where we break down a lot of curriculum examples and policies that you can go through and use in examples specifically set up for that. So if you search for that on Facebook, I have example letters on there. I have letters that I write with evidence that you can use, all that thing. The key is to educate them with specific examples. Don't just say, oh, I support, I mean, at the bare minimum, you can say, I support you supporting this bill and, you know, okay. But you need to go one step further if you can and give them some ammunition. You know, this happened at this school. Here's the report. therefore there is evidence this is happening. My sister's kids got this survey she didn't know about. This is happening. Anything you can do to give them some ammo in their pockets to prove that this is needed, because it is needed, and to refocus the conversation from, oh my God, all these kids are going to die, to this is what we're trying to fix in the system.
You have to be the adult in the room, just like what you said. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to get a story out there tomorrow, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that slide presentation is going to be available to you guys, because I just got a few text messages, and they're, you can write it on here, but hey, you need to publish this stuff. We're going to do that. We're going to put that stuff up there. I was like, yeah, we do. And so you will know that each part of the bill is matched to what is going on and what we've said for 2 years, and it codifies it. Moreover, it's going to foster communication, everything that you said, Nancy. So with that, we're going to bid you adieu. Make sure you sign up for the newsletters, because you're going to get every single report. And like I always tell you, it's not enough for you to do something. I want you to share it with 10 friends. You have to do that. You best be believing that Facebook is throttling us. We had 100 viewers, and now I've gotten a couple messages that Facebook has dropped the viewers. Yeah, so we're being throttled, and we're going to need you to help carry the message for us.
Yep.
All right. All right. So have a great evening, guys. We're going to follow up with you as the news comes out. Sign up for the newsletter. Look for it tomorrow morning. It will hit, and you'll have the facts to arm yourself and enter into battle.
Absolutely. Get the facts. Educate the legislators. Don't assume they know everything. They don't. And fight for your kids.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good night. Bye, guys.
Bye.